So we moved past last week. We had a few little lessons on spelling, or I should say certain spelling rules, particularly those that we immediately break. But today we're kind of starting more on pronouns, and by the end we'll be talking about modifiers. So to start with, what we're going to be dealing with is avoiding shifts in person, which gives us a bit of a little bit of background when it comes to using pronouns. And it's also kind of a timely lesson because yesterday and here and there in the past, we've talked about point of view, first person point of view or third person point of view, right? So we often, point of view for us has sort of two different meanings. It's both perspective. The first way, when we're dealing with it like this, it's basically who is talking, right? That's the point of view. So first person point of view, of course, we use I and me as our pronouns, right? It's literally me that is just, writing or talking. Third person is when you're discussing, another specific individual where you're using he or she typically as pronouns. As a group, you would say they. There's also second person, which we haven't dealt a lot with yet, which we're going to see here. And that's when you're using you. So as an author, you're speaking to an individual is a way to look at it. It's used in advertising a lot, right? You want to buy this, Chevy Tahoe, and you see yourself driving this vehicle. It's sort of putting the experience on a person, the person who's reading it. So let's take a look here and learn more about that. Oh, and then of course the other way we use point of view when it comes to perspective is when we talk about opinion. So that's just sort of to eliminate any confusion. That is the two ways that you'll hear us, or in social studies, in language arts, in writing, the two sort of different definitions for point of view. One is in particular the perspective of the author. Two, when we hear point of view, it's dealing with the opinions that the author is taking. So when they take a certain side, that's their point of view of that opinion. All right. So now let's take a look at avoiding shifts in person.
Hello again, I'm Leonard. Welcome to the lesson, Avoiding Shifts in Person. This lesson will teach you about person in writing, the language point of view you write from. It will help you avoid changing from one point of view to another.
And that's sort of the idea. Not only are we learning about the different viewpoints, point of view, but catching ourselves if we stray in and out of point of view when we're writing. It's very easy to do. Suddenly shift from talking in the first person. I would say it happens more with second and third person. And you'll see some examples here. It's like, okay, I can see where I might do that.
The idea of person in what you write may sound strange, but it just means a point of view you're writing from. Do you say I and write from your personal perspective? Do you say you and directly address the reader? Do you not do either of those and take a more objective approach, saying he, she, and they? The person of what you write affects its tone. It tells the reader a little bit about your attitude to the topic and to the reader. Shifting back and forth can make your tone more confused and make reading your work more difficult. Being consistent makes your writing better. I had a student who was writing an account of some terrible abuses that happened in the country she came from. I'm not going to get into the details, but she wanted to be able to write about the things that happened to her and her family. She wanted to inform others about what had gone on. She had me look at the first draft of an article. The first thing I noticed was that she switched back and forth between we and they. It was distracting and confused the perspective. We talked about it and decided that the more personal I and me was important to communicate her story. Her writing improved a lot with some practice. I think she's even planning to write a book. The point is that if you pay attention to person, it will help you develop a tone and communicate more smoothly. Let me show you.
That's something else we haven't really discussed. I always mention talking about first person, use I or me. But if you are part of a group, right, that's also going to be in the first person because you are part of that. So we, us, right, are also pronouns that you're going to use in those situations. Whereas they is still going to be third person because you're talking about a separate group. So that's an easy one to do as well. But, consider the fact that we is also going to be in the first person. I hit next. Yeah, it's working.
The first thing you need to understand is the difference between first person, second person, and third person. Often, people use the term point of view or perspective to describe the use of first, second, or third person, but that can be confusing. Point of view and perspective include a lot more than just whether the author says I or they. It includes the author's or character's ideas and values. So I prefer to use the word person. That is what this lesson is about.
Which is what I just mentioned, right? So we also can get confused when we're talking about point of view, whether it's their opinion or the way they're characterizing something or the narrative that they're using. So
first person is when you write from your individual point of view using words like I, me, we, and us. You won't usually use first person in formal writing, like academic papers. It gives your writing a personal feeling because it tells your reader what happened to you and what your ideas are. First person is common in literature, when a story is told from the point of view of a character or personal essays on autobiographies. Second person is when you speak directly to the reader, using words like you and your. Second person is uncommon in literature, although there are some books and stories that talk directly to you. Take a look at the opening of Italo Calvino's novel, If on a Winter's Night, a Traveler. You're about to begin reading Italo Calvino's new novel, If on a Winter's Night, a Traveler. Relax. Concentrate. Dispel every other thought. Let the world around you fade. Best to close the door. The TV is always on in the next room. Tell the others right away. No, I don't want to watch TV. Do you see how it talks directly to the reader? It uses the word you and commands, but the word I is only used in a quote. This style of writing is more common in writing that gives instructions and directions, but is still the least common type of writing. The third type of writing is the most common, especially in formal writing. It's third person. That's when you don't say I or you, and it's less personal and more objective. It only uses pronouns like someone or her, and nouns like people or teachers or Professor Torrance to describe people. It never uses I or you except in quotations. Because third person is more objective, it's the person you'll use in most academic writing. When you write, pay attention to person. Choose the person that's most appropriate to your writing purpose and audience.
Right. So first person, I, me, us, we. Yeah, it's used a lot, obviously, in nonfiction, in memoirs and autobiographies when the person is talking about themselves. It says, he's talking about like formal writing, but if it's a cover letter, if you're looking for a job, you're going to be writing in the first person because you're talking about yourself. That would be a professional letter, in a circumstance where you would use first person. So it's never, it is used sometimes in first person. There's also other times in history. And I've mentioned this, the author will say, my argument is. So they sometimes do inject first person, even in, things like histories and nonfiction writing. Second person is as it said, you are talking to the reader. So, and it's what I do, it's what we do a lot in day-to-day life. So if I use you, I'm talking to the reader. And it's very bizarre, as you say, you don't see that much in fictional writing. You don't write a whole story in second person. It would be bizarre putting that person in the situation. They do exist. It's not completely, void. There are stories out there like that, but you could see the problem, right? Writing a fictional story about being a spy or something, and I'm using you, right? You are, flying down the road on a motorcycle. You suddenly stop at the side of a crash. It's weird. Third person, obviously, most generally used. If I'm talking about history, I'm going to be talking in the third person because I'm talking about other people. Also, in fiction writing, you're talking about other people. You're talking about characters. So that's usually written in third person as well. So you use her, him, they, those types of pronouns to describe those people. It's kind of weird that we've not discussed pronouns a whole lot before we're doing this lesson. We are in the next lesson going to talk a little bit more about pronouns, but pronouns are words that we use to replace other words, and they keep our writing from being repetitive. So if I was saying, if I was talking about my daughter, and every sentence I'm using her name, it's awkward and it doesn't flow well and it's repetitive. Emma had a softball tournament last weekend. Emma got a base hit during the game. Emma's team didn't win. That's really doesn't flow well and everything. I could just say, Emma's softball team played last week. She got a run during the game. Her team didn't win though, right? So she and her replaces just me using that, personal pronoun, or not personal pronoun. It is a personal pronoun, a proper noun every time. So let's keep going here.
What person is this paragraph written in?
Right. So short paragraph here, and thinking about, what is the point of view? So everyone enjoys the smell of bread baking in the oven. As the pedestrians pass by the little bakery, their noses would rise to catch a whiff. I'm hungry, one man murmured as he turned toward the shop. So what's our signals here to look for? We look for those pronouns, right? What pronouns do we see? There.
Everyone.
Everyone, right? That's another one, right? So everyone, he, they. So
Third person.
third person. Yeah, good.
Great job. This paragraph is in the third person. It uses words like everyone, pedestrians, there, one man, and he to describe people. The only time it uses the word I is in a quotation.
Yeah, and of course, quotations set off somebody specifically speaking, so it's not actually going to change the point of view within the text.
Shifts in person happen when a writer changes between different persons without a good reason. The most common shifts in person are between third and second person, or between third and first person. In other words, a shift usually happens when someone is trying to write formally in third person, and then accidentally or unthinkingly shifts to first or second person.
Right. It's very odd. You're not going to start, you start off talking about I and then suddenly jump to you, right? But it's more common to see, you start off talking about you and then all of a sudden jump to he or she, or you jump from I to they, stuff like that.
Take a look at this sentence. Most people trust in their doctors, but your doctor doesn't always have the answers. This sentence shifts person in the middle. It starts out talking about most people and their doctors. That's talking about people in general in the third person. Then it shifts to second person by talking about your doctor. You want to avoid this kind of shift. Choose whether you want to talk personally to the reader Like this.
But see how easy that is to do, because again, we're not using the first person. And, I mean, I'm sure I've done this. Most people trust in their doctors, but your doctor doesn't always have the answers, right? It doesn't sound awkward. It's a very easy mistake to make. There we're talking third person. We're talking second person. So that's a real subtle shift, but it's definitely changing the idea there.
Like this. You may trust your doctor, but she doesn't always have the answers. She refers to your doctor in this example. It doesn't make the sentence as a whole third person because it refers to a different group of people. The main focus, people in general, are referred to as you. Second person is more personal and immediate. You can also put the whole sentence in third person like this. Most people trust in their doctors, but doctors don't always have the answers. This sentence doesn't use I or you at all. It's a better choice for formal writing. Here's another example of a sentence that changes person. Human beings are most likely to believe things that support our pre-existing ideas. This example changes from third person, human beings, to first person, our. The correct pronoun to use to describe human beings is their. Human beings are most likely to believe things that support their pre-existing ideas. Or you could change the sentence to all first person to make it in person like this. We as human beings are most likely to believe things that support our pre-existing ideas. Since most formal and academic writing is third person, it's often best to avoid first and second person. But no matter what person you're writing in, avoid switching between first, second, and third person.
Yeah. Second person, you're not going to encounter much in formal writing. You're not addressing necessarily, the reader directly. And now, let's see here.
Which one word or phrase would you change in this paragraph to avoid a shift in person?
Yeah, so it says
Click on the word or phrase to select it.
people
Look
believe.
for pronouns or for words that describe people.
Okay, he's done. People believe what they want to believe. When a strong believer in gun control hears evidence against gun control, he or she is likely to question it. When a person who opposes gun control hears evidence of effective gun control, that person will question it. This is called confirmation bias. It's not about the strength of the evidence. Everyone accepts evidence for what you already believe and rejects evidence against it. So,
You.
right? Yeah. So,
Great job.
I didn't mean to
Most
click on
of this
already.
passage is in third person. The pronoun you switches to second person. It's incorrect to refer to everyone as you.
Right. And yeah, so that's the difference there. Everyone, right? That's one of our signals there. It's like, okay, that's third person. You, if we immediately see that, we know it's second person. So that was the one out of place. And
Now it's time to show that you've learned this concept.
all right.
Try some
Yeah, so we've got our typical 8 practice questions here. So you guys take about 10 minutes. I think that should be plenty. So we'll go to a little after 2 there and work on those independently. And we'll come back, we'll take a look and review our answers. If you guys got any questions, as always, I'm right here. All right. So for starters here, so the idea that they're presenting is Mick is writing a personal essay about his youth growing up in a rural community. So looking at what would be the appropriate choice for that, he's writing about himself, right? There you go. First person is going to be our best bet, right? Anything else would be awkward. He's not going to. This is something else that has come up from time to time, and you may. It's kind of a joke. People that talk about themselves in the third person. There was a senator who ran for president in the 90s, I think, against Clinton, maybe the second time, Bob Dole, who just passed away not that long ago. But they made a lot of fun of him because every once in a while he would talk about himself in the third person. So of course, like on SNL and everything, it was Norm Macdonald actually played Bob Dole, and they would get on this whole rant about Bob Dole's doing this, Bob Dole's doing that. So talking about yourself in the third person is weird, and people do it from time to time. But first person, obviously, if you're writing a story about your own experiences, that's going to work best. Okay, and then which choice is the best revision to this sentence? So some psychologists believe that people have different kinds of intelligence. So you may have more aptitude in language or music.
It'll be B.
So we change you to one individual. So some psychologists believe that people have different kinds of intelligence. One individual may have more aptitude in language or music. Yes. Right. So it's switching between third person to second person, which is one of the more common mistakes made. So in order to make sure that you keep it all one, we change the you to one individual, which is going to keep that third person. And then we have one word here that we need to change. Changes to avoid a shift in person. Which word do we need to change? How we store memories depends on how we experience them. One example of this is the testing effect. When individuals spend time recalling information through testing, we remember the information better.
Individual.
There you go. Yeah, individuals, right? Shifting. What's our other, signal words there that we're looking for? We see we multiple times, right? So that's going to be first person when we see we. Individuals is talking about others, right? So that's shifting. We change that. Yeah, so that's going to be a they pronoun where we is I or us. So that's what we need to change there. So their corrections: when we spend time recalling information through testing, we remember the information better. And
you're doing very well.
Yeah, we're doing well, but we're going to keep going. All right. Which choice is the best revision for the sentence? So by trying different hobbies, people learn skills and you meet other people. So we're shifting from, go ahead.
C, change skills and you to just skills and.
Yeah. So changing skills and you to just skills. So, right. So it's, as it says, you meet other people are in different persons. By eliminating the word you, which is second person, this changed the entire sentence and makes it third person. So it reads, by trying different hobbies, people learn new skills and meet other people. Right. So not shifting to second person in there.
I'm just a little confused on how you know. Like I'm just a little confused about the whole one first person, second, and third.
Okay. Well, once we go through them, we'll wrap up and I'll talk about it a little more. So all people should try new things to explore your potential. Everyone has a variety of talents, and few individuals will discover new abilities without trying their hand at new tasks. So the word your, which is second person, right? Everything else, so all people would be third person. There you go. And then what person is this paragraph written in? When we first learned to use fire, it must have been a revelation. Fire gave us warmth and protection, and it provided a way to cook food.
First person.
First person, right? So we is including me, right?
Us.
So yeah, us. So that's going to be first person. I am talking about myself as part of this group. And most people can lose weight if they exercise and track their calories. Dieters should first figure out how many calories you are burning each day. They will provide a starting point to develop their eating plan.
So you.
There you go, right? You, everything else is third person. We're seeing there, talking about that group over there. So that's third person, but you is second. Okay, so we change that. Final one here. So many dieters need to lose weight, but others who have unhealthy body images need to increase your calories and gain weight. So we change your to there, right? And this one actually sounds a little bit awkward, right? Many dieters need to lose weight, but others who have unhealthy body images need to increase your calories and gain weight. So there you could see sort of the abruptness in the change of person. So there, or I'm sorry, your to there. Okay.
So, did you learn something new in this lesson? Did you get some good practice?
All right,
And
so let's
audience?
talk about this.
And don't switch between them unless you've got a good reason.
Right. So just to recap, so when we're talking about person or point of view, so first person, second person, third person. First person is literally me talking about myself. So the pronouns, right? We're going to use I, we use me, we use we, and we use us. We and us, right, are going to be the plurals there because I'm part of that group. So if I'm, like I mentioned, a good example would be writing a cover letter. If I'm looking for a job, I would be talking about myself in that cover letter. I would be explaining my experience. I worked as a teaching assistant. I have a master's degree in history, things like that. Second person is the author is talking to the reader, right? So you is the pronoun. You may want to try, roller skating. You want to do this. You want to do that. So as it mentioned, a lot of times it's instructions or sort of commands, right? So I'm talking to you as the author and using you. Third person, more common when I'm talking about other people or other groups. So, anybody that is not me or specifically the reader as you. So, like I mentioned, talking about my daughter, I'm going to use her and she, Emma, and those pronouns to describe her. Also, I think somewhere, the confusion might be also if I'm talking about a group in the third person. So everyone, all right, that doesn't include me. They, right, that I'm outside of that group as well. So, and there would be the possessive pronoun for that. Let's see if there's anything I'm missing there. And as you mentioned, the most common probably mistakes you see that's very easy to do is switching from third or shifting back and forth between third and second person. So, and And it does kind of have it doesn't have a very awkward flow to it because I'm still talking about other people in either case. But if I'm saying things like everybody, needs to do this, then I have to continue using they, their, or everybody, or individuals, right? If I'm using you, I have to stay with you. Does that help, Jessica? Is there something specific that you kind of have with?
Just the whole concept of the whole thing, like I just don't like in those paragraphs with the questions when how do you know who's saying what? Like that the whole thing is just still a little confusing to me.
We're going to get some more practice with this. So the thing, like with the paragraphs, for example, what you want to look out for, those are a little weird because, you are looking for a specific word to change. The thing is, though, what they want you to look for, if they're using a certain pronoun multiple times, that that's the correct point of view. So if there's a paragraph and the bulk of that paragraph is using I, and then all of a sudden it throws in a there, right? We know that that's the one we need to change. Yeah, the ones with the paragraphs are a little tricky because you are really looking for, and it's not necessarily just the pronoun that they're wanting you to change. It might be the verb or the subject that needs to change. Those particular questions probably aren't going to, you're not going to see things like that appear necessarily on the test. What you're going to see, though, are questions about pronouns, pronoun usage, maybe point of view. So it's good practice to sort of explore those things. But in particular, like getting a question like that where you're like picking out a word in a paragraph, I probably not going to see too much like that on the exam. All right. So just as long as you keep straight that first person, we use I, we, us, and me. Its second person is you, talking directly to the reader, and third person talking about other groups. If you can keep that straight, the rest is going to be pretty easy for you. All right.
Okay.
Okay. Is there any other questions? Good. Okay. And again, we're going to get more practice with pronouns and things, so it'll make a little more sense as we get down the road. I think it's kind of weird that they started with this one rather than starting with pronouns. But Monday we'll actually start working with different pronouns, and it'll probably help make a little sense there too. So anyway, a little bit of a shorter day today. Tomorrow we'll have another lesson in RLA reading, and we'll be wrapping up one of the units there. And of course, with social studies, we'll do some more history. We'll talk about Reconstruction and the latter half of the 1800s. So you guys have a good afternoon, and I'll see you tomorrow for social studies. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.